Yeah, so a 31-year-old man who stated that he rented the Airbnb in Masca, which is a property that we know that Jay drove to in the company of two men, or was driven to, I should say. Spent some time there, sent a Snapchat posting of himself on that doorstep, and we know that because analysis of the Snapchat posts that Jay did that Monday morning clearly shows a mosaiced floor exactly matching the pattern outside this property. So, 31-year-old man, formerly of Cardiff, that says he rented this at £40 per evening, has spoken to the media. Let me just say this as delicately as I can. This man has a rather checkered past, which I would find extremely interesting were I investigating Jay's disappearance. And on that note, I think if we'd been faced with a similar situation in the UK being dealt with by a British police service, we'd have seen a lot of differences, I think, in terms of how the media strategy might have been a bit better kind of organised. We'd have got regular updates, Jay's disappearance. And on that note, I think if we'd been faced with a similar situation in the UK being dealt with by a British police service, we'd have seen a lot of differences, I think, in terms of how the media strategy might have been a bit better kind of organised. We'd have got regular updates. The public would have been kept in the loop because the interest in this case is simply vast. Let's look at what the Spanish police, the Guardia Civil as they're known, told us early on in the inquiry, and that was they'd spoken to the two men from the vehicle which Jay travelled in, and they said they were not relevant to the inquiry. And they said that really at a very early phase. And then, over 2 weeks later, two plainclothes police officers with forensic overshoes over their day shoes are seen coming out of that property. Now, that smacks to me of having to rewind a little bit, perhaps when their strategy of, yes, he must have gone missing in the mountainous terrain, did not deliver any kind of discovery. Perhaps they've had to rather embarrassingly rewind, look at the overview of everything and say, well, perhaps we left some gaps. Let's talk about the Madeline Mccann case, if we may, for example. Another very high-profile case of a missing British, albeit child, in a foreign country. What we know from that case was that the police mishandled the scene of Madeline's disappearance, the apartment from which she disappeared. And when I say mishandled, what I mean is there was ample footage of so many people traipsing in and out of that apartment, people who clearly had no right to be there, uniformed police officers, other people that were simply unidentified, going in and out, in and out, in and out. Now, what happens with a forensic scene, why they should be so carefully preserved, is that when you've got people in there that shouldn't be, they can inadvertently destroy, remove, damage forensic evidence, and of course you only get one chance to get it right. So if that chance has been missed, like it was in the Madeline Mccann case, look how damaging that has been to that case, which remains stubbornly unsolved over 17 years later.
And of course, Peter,
look how damaging that has been to that case, which remains stubbornly unsolved over 17 years later.
And of course, Peter,
tying down a particular device to a person is absolutely crucial, because analysis of the data that that phone or iPad or laptop may have sent out and received, because they're hoovering data up all the time, can so often pinpoint a particular person to a particular place at a particular time. And that really applies here, because when Jay's phone last pinged, it was that location that the Guardia Civil focused on and fanned out their physical search from there. Data is just so important to modern investigation.
So guys, as we heard, that was Peter Bexley, and he was just giving his opinion on the updated information on DJ Slater case. Now, as you heard in his in his interview, he compares this case to the Madeline Mccann case in terms of how the case was handled back then in Madeline's situation and how it's been handled in Jay's case. He also refers to obviously them backpedaling a little bit, which is kind of what I feel has happened here, because we know that they didn't do what they are doing now back then. They've treated this as a missing persons case, and why now, 2 weeks down the line, after potential evidence has been contaminated, removed, cleared, whatever, are they now going back on what were they actually hoping to get from the scene, especially as they went in their shoes covered with the blue covers but in plain clothes. Now I'm hearing mixed in information saying that they were in forensic full suits. I have only seen that they were in the plain clothes but with the coveralls on their shoes. I don't know if when they went in the house they put them on, but normally you would put them on before you would go in, and you would be very careful going in. But obviously, like I said, this is 2 weeks down the line that they decided to go back to the apartment and have a look. I always find Peter Bexley interesting. I always like his opinions and views on these cases, and I just wanted to show you what he was saying, and give you an oversight. He kind of thinks very similar to myself in terms of the investigation. It has been poorly managed, and once it's been poorly managed, you can't undo that. You can't go back. And obviously we've now had all the information on these one of these men who's now kind of outed themselves a bit on social, well, not on social media, but into the media regarding who they are or who he is. We still don't know who the other guy is, and I understand he isn't speaking to Mark Williams Thomas. Anyway, I just wanted to bring you that bit of information just so that you have that, and just to see what another person's viewpoint is, bearing in mind he is an ex-detective, and I find him quite interesting. Do make sure you are following so you don't miss updates on this case and the other ones we are talking about, and do make sure that you have gone to YouTube and subscribed over there. Bye guys.